Good morning, Foggers. Happy Monday morning, chilly morning here in South Florida. Just a couple things to cover. We heard that there were a couple of Palm Bay officers that were shot. Um, Not life-threatening. Apparently they're going to recover. Everything's fine. We're so grateful for that. Immediately my mind went to the investigators, the responding officers, the subject officers that had to discharge their firearm. And I was told that the peer team and all the resources were available, which is a great thing for that department and for that chief who answered all the questions in a tough manner, very assertive, and that was good to see. But when you see a scenario like that, just some of you that are on here that are not first responders, that incident that happened, although being tragic, and thank God they survived the fight, right? Now we talk about the war, right? The battle, right? They won the battle there, but the war now starts. The trauma of being shot, the trauma of having to discharge your firearm, the trauma of responding there and seeing your brothers and sisters in pain and bleeding, so how a scenario like that was isolated to that day is now going to expand for the rest of your life, right? And how you deal with it is how successful you will be. Hopefully you're not turning to alcohol to dull all those flashbacks and those pain and just a tragic day. And hopefully they'll take advantage of those resources, get past the stigma and say it's okay to feel, right? That's what we want to do. We want to feel again and get past all that and be well on your road to recovery, not only physically, but psychologically, which is what governs our whole mindset, our body, our life is our brain, right? I was in contact with a retired guy from our department this weekend. It was like a bittersweet exchange of text because, he told me, he goes, I thought that when I retired and moved away from here, that I was going to have an opportunity to rebuild my life and move on and be quote unquote normal. And again, we've talked about this before. What is normal? Does it even exist? And what is it? Is mine different than yours? And he's had things happen that are just events that are in his life since he's retired. And it's things that happen in your life, and yeah, they can be traumatic, and he just has this sense of demons and bad luck, trauma and things are following him. And there's a lot of those things. That's why trauma is like a slow bullet. These officers were killed by very fast projectiles, which are very dangerous, and I'm not minimizing that at all. Again, we're very grateful that they're fine. But trauma is what I call the slow bullet. Sometimes it pushes people to that brink of suicide, and it's the same thing. And it's been happening for a long time. It's been traveling throughout your body and destroying your marriage, destroying your house, destroying everything, right? And so he's like, what do I do now? What am I supposed to do now that I'm not doing police work or whatever? And I said, listen, I think that police work is a calling and it's God's work, right? And just look at other things. And then he shared with me, he's doing a lot of other charitable things that are helping him out. And I said, that's a great thing. I mean, that's just moving on and doing God's work. And it brought to mind a story that I'll share with you that to this day has bothered me, but I got a little bit of closure through therapy. And I was dispatched. One of my officers were dispatched to a call. I took a backup. It was one of those where you go, oh my God, I'm just like 2 or 3 blocks away. So I turned on my overhead lights. I didn't even have to turn on my sirens. And when I turned the corner, there's a guy in the middle of the street, manic crisis, going crazy. Looked like he was doing jumping jacks, flagging me down. And the first thing that goes through an experienced officer's mind is, oh shit, that call just went out. Fire rescue's not going to be here for another 3 or 4 minutes. And 3 or 4 minutes on a cardiac or respiratory arrest is like 3 freaking days. Okay? Because you're going to have to jump through hoops now and get to work. So when I get there, he's just going crazy and pushing me and stuff. Let's go. You got to save my dad. And extremely traumatic, right? Talk about an adrenaline dump there. And so I go to the back of the police car, the trunk, and I get my defibrillator, and I get my ambu bag, and I've got my gloves on my gun belt. And I go in there, and the minute I go in there and I look at his father who's slumped over the couch, I said to myself, this guy's been dead for quite a while, right? He had pooling of the blood that we called lividity, and he just had several signs that he had been there for quite a while. And the story was And mind you, keep in mind that he's going nuts, telling me, screaming at me to the top of his lung while he's bawling to save my father, okay? That's what I'm dealing with. And I'm dealing with, your father's been dead for quite a while. So what happened was, two brothers are at the house caring for their father. They loved him very much, right, as their father. And one says, look, I got to go to work and check some things out. Just make sure that dad doesn't get up to do stuff for dad if he needs it or whatever. Well, the other brother that stayed home fell asleep. And in the process of falling asleep, the father needed to get something or whatever it was that he was going to do. He got up and left the room, and in the living room collapsed and died. So when the brother wakes up and finds the father dead, we get the 911 call and so forth. And so this is just a nightmare, right? The brother shows up. They start into an actual physical fight. I'm alone on the scene. My unit's en route, fire's en route, whatever. We end up handling the scene. But I carried that for a long time. And you're asking me, man, like, what did you carry? And I go, well, the same guilt that the son had, that he had fallen asleep and in his mind had killed his father, which is ridiculous because his father was a very sick man, was going to die regardless, but he had that feeling, and I left with that feeling. And again, I left and I went on about my day. Yeah, I thought about it for a little bit, but I didn't say, oh my God, this is going to be trauma. I just went on about it. But later on in therapy, I was like, you know what, man, that shit really fucking bothered me, because I felt like this guy really felt like when I walked through the door, I was like Jesus, okay? And the therapist looked at me, she goes, at that time you were Jesus. And I was like, again, I asked her, like, yeah, how do you think? How do you figure that? And she told me some powerful things. She goes, when you came in through that door, you were authority, you were comfort, you gave a sense of closure, even though that closure for them is going to take a while. But you brought in all the stuff, knowledge, all these things, and it was like a godlike figure. And so why do I tell you this story? And that did give me some comfort later. I still think about it. I'm here sitting here and I can see the man on the floor, on the sofa. I can still see the two brothers fighting. It was really traumatic. But why do I bring that up is, I told this guy, you're still doing God's work in other ways, right? It doesn't have to be jumping out of helicopters or fences or biting people or whatever with a dog. And you're still doing God's work. Just get that satisfaction from doing God's work in another way. But that trauma stuck with me. It stuck with me because it made me feel like shit, like I had failed at something, and it really wasn't my position to put my hand on this guy and raise him from the dead like Lazarus. It wasn't going to happen. But I carried that, and those are the things that we carry all the time. And I hear some of these therapists and scholars and people with all these diplomas on the wall, and they go, well, other people's tragedies aren't your trauma. Yeah, bullshit. Okay? Tell that to somebody else. Because everybody else who's had tragedies that we've responded, okay, we carry that, all right? That's a burden that we carry. It's very Christ-like because we don't look at it when we go like, hey, I'm putting on my gun belt today. I'm sacrificing myself for you. We don't. But when you look at the big picture and step back, we do. There's no amount of money that you can give us or any benefits or bonuses like we talked about the other day that's ever going to be able to compensate us for what we go through. Not while we're on the job and not while we retire. So we have to find a way through us, through our own peer counseling, support, therapy, water therapy, whatever it may be, we have to find a way to take care of us. Nobody's going to do it, okay? So that's up to us. So again, I just wanted another little dose of information while we're getting everything figured out here on this end to do my interview, and the doctor's already been in touch with me and we're going to do that. But I just wanted to throw that out there that, God's work comes in many ways, all right? Whether it's in the uniform or whether you're retired, you just got to stay active in doing stuff like that, and that keeps us satisfied, okay? And I'm going to leave you with this. This retired officer, and I wrote it down, so excuse me for looking down, but he sent this to me, which I thought was pretty powerful. He says, we're all broken inside, and sometimes this is what attracts us to being rescuers. We take some comfort in keeping others from where we are or where we have been. And I think that that's a great thing, right? We go out there, and again, that sacrificial lamb, we go out there and we do things so they don't have to do it. Yet when they respond and they're crying and they're missing their family, we carry that, okay? So again, prayers to these officers that were shot, to everybody on the scene that's have to handle it, to you that's at work, maybe going through a bad time or whatever. and people that have written to me. It's okay to feel, all right? You can message me if you want, get therapy, but there's help on the way, and we're just grateful for everybody logging in. Please go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and like. It's the only way that we're gonna get anywhere with this. And again, I'm grateful for everybody, okay? Stay in the fight. You may be knocked down to one knee, but hold on to the rope and get back up, okay? Don't forget to take out the garbage. All right, guys. Love you. Be good, man.